Welcome to BrandBusters with your hosts, James Schwinn and Sean Lee. Together, we bust open the latest in CPG, retail media, and life, or whatever the we want. And for today's episode, we got something special cooked up for ya. Extra spicy. Take it away, Sean.
All right. We are back for episode 8. It has been too long. It's been a couple weeks, so glad to be back with everybody here. Today we've got a pretty quick episode, but we're going to talk about Amazon's new requirements that they just rolled out for third-party brands selling supplements. James is going to talk on Olympic ad inventory being sold out, which should be a big media moment for this summer and for brands. We're going to cover the Chase Retail Media Network and end it with just talking about how Temu is coming for Amazon, setting up some US-based warehouses and setting up their own marketplace. So with that, we will jump into the Amazon testing requirements for third-party supplements. James, why do you think that they did this?
To collect more fees, of course. Make it even harder for the brands that are fighting the good fight and trying to scale on the channel. No, I think a couple of drivers here, Sean. I mean, you and I both lead pretty active lifestyles, and my supplement regimen, I have 5 or 6 things I probably take daily. Yeah, and if anyone's ever searched pre-workout supplements, I mean, there are some good products out there, but there's also a lot of noise that definitely are not third-party tested, a lot of filler ingredients. I think I saw like a John Wick branded pre-workout this morning as I reloaded. So there's definitely some bad players. There's probably some compliance regulation here, but I don't know. I'm just,
Yeah, I mean, I remember when we were working at the Amazon agency together at Amify, and we were working with a large CBD player. And they were frustrated that they couldn't go onto Amazon because their products contained CBD. But if you searched Amazon, there were all kinds of things that were hemp-based products, and like the labels looked horrendous, and God knows where they were made and what was in them. So, I mean, it's probably a long time coming, especially with the wild west of supplements. Obviously, if you buy from good brands that do their own third-party testing and publish it, probably no problem. But there's a lot of brands that are Amazon only or that you've never heard of before that I think it gets a little dicey. We have, for my reseller company that I own, VitaBox, we have a couple of supplement brands we work with. So we've been going through the requirements with them to try to figure this out. And really, a lot of supplement companies are already doing this testing with their contract manufacturers, or if they're in other channels, it's required. The interesting thing that we learned is that even if you've done this third-party testing yourself, Amazon isn't going to let you self-submit it. They're making you go through their portal that they've now created with, like, in the US, I think there's 3 approved testing third-party companies that you have to submit all of your ASINs and all of your SKUs to. And the guess is it's probably going to be about $1,000 to $2,000 per SKU for the test. So think about a supplement company that has 300 products, wasn't planning for this, and now they've got a $300,000 to $600,000 bill, or Amazon says, we're not going to let you sell anymore on our platform. So I think supplement companies are probably scrambling right now. Smaller ones, probably not a big deal. Bigger ones, probably worried. But I think for the consumer, I love it. I mean, I order protein. I use Naked Protein. I can't do whey for a variety of reasons, and nobody wants to be around me if I've drinking a whey protein shake or drank some milk. So I have to do pea protein and rice. But I'm always concerned. I'm like, what the heck's in this stuff? Am I just like drinking like lead and arsenic? Like, I kind of trust the branding of the company, but it would be nice to know that a third party has at least tested it for heavy metals and done all the verification steps before it's sold to me on Amazon.
Well, I'm thinking about some of that. I mean, we both have kids too, like baby formula, like some like the co-packing facilities where these are stored. Like sometimes it's like, you would think it's like a clean facility, but sometimes like, oh, there's like gunpowder in there also, where we're also feeding our baby formula. So again, from a consumer perspective, I think it's great. And I think there's 2 ways this will affect. I think there's some brands that absolutely, they have a solid supply chain, have the third-party testing. This will definitely hurt the bottom line, but they at least have the infrastructure. I think there's some of the people that are just trying to like, slap a product on the platform that will probably just deter them from entering the category, which I would arguably say is one of the largest, faster growing, most competitive categories on Amazon with health and wellness. So if the advertising and CPC starting to turn enough, like this compliance component will absolutely drive more brands away. But again, win for the consumer. We'll see brands pushing back. I think we've seen Amazon walk back certain things to a certain scale. The other thing Sean, you brought up is like these supplements have lots of lines, lots of categories. Do we see some SKU rationalization happen? Especially we talk about brands that focus on omni-channel businesses. Like how do they get their assortment right? You know what? If we have all these long tail products, maybe we don't want to pay that fee. So let's really
I think so.
What's our unique value prop from a line standpoint, and then maybe circumvent that with, if Target or Walmart or D2C might be less scrutinizing, then we'll drive more of our assortment that way.
Yeah, I think you're going to see the long tail go away, right? Because if you sell 300 products, if you're Pure Encapsulations or Thorn, I think both of those are sold through Pattern and then NetRush. And those resellers are going to be looking for the manufacturer to pay those fees. But if I'm them, I'm probably saying, wait a minute, my top 100 of the 300 are driving all of my revenue. Let me just start rationalizing these ones that don't make a ton of sense, or only invest in the ones that are strategic. So I 100% think that happens. The conspiracy theories that are out there, which are always fun to go down those rabbit holes, are kind of twofold of why is Amazon doing this. I think the first one is there's this law in the US that if you are a platform only and you're not taking title to the product and selling it, you kind of have some legal, air cover to say, hey, we're the platform. We just facilitate the transaction. We're not responsible for the seller and what they sell to the end consumer because we're the platform. And, US case law has been that way for a very, very long time. The interesting thing that I've heard, especially around supplements, is when you're a third-party seller on Amazon, if Amazon offers subscribe and save on your product, Amazon will kick in funding up for that subscribe and save. So if it says save 10% off if you subscribe, Amazon might kick in 5% of that 10%. So they've now become a party to the transaction, which would then, in theory, they could be sued and be liable for the products that are being sold, because now they've not just been a platform, they've contributed monetarily to the transaction with the discount. So there's a theory that this is why Amazon's doing this, because there's a huge legal risk if a savvy lawyer wanted to test that hypothesis and take them to court. So that's conspiracy theory number one. I think the second piece is Amazon has recently launched their own supplement brands or their private label. So is this a way to get the small players out and, make it the big branded players in Amazon, and Amazon can rapidly start taking market share from the ones that move themselves or self-select out of the marketplace? I don't buy that one as much, because Amazon has generally failed at almost every private label that they've launched compared to, the rest of their business. Like, they just aren't very big. So I don't think that's the driver. I think it's more the legal risk of, if somebody really starts challenging it, do they become liable for all these wild west supplements that are being sold on the market? Some might contain actual hormones, testosterone, lead, arsenic. They just probably want to protect themselves.
Yeah. I agree. And they have enough legal fees probably being incurred with the antitrust suits. What other litigious battles that they have domestically and abroad. So,
well, speaking of sketchy supplements, I heard that Peter Thiel was going to start a competitor to the Olympics where all the athletes could dope and then just see who's the best athlete, like with the most doping possible, which I think would be pretty damn entertaining. But that's not what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the Olympics, which is the clean one, unless you've watched some of the blood doping documentaries like Icarus on Netflix, where some KGB agents in Russia were like changing out blood tests and doing everything in real time. So maybe it's not that clean, but Olympic inventory, it's a big world event. It's always a big marketing event. It was when I was at P&G. It just sold out. James, what are you hearing about it?
Yeah, so the running tab is about 1.2 billion in Olympic ad sales with just under 100 days to go, which is kind of a record both from ad sales standpoint and also just the pace in which it's sold out. So this broke ad revenue Olympics history. I think we're seeing a trend here, right? I think we've reported on similar things in past episodes on Super Bowl ad inventory selling out faster than ever. And I think there's a lot of drivers here. So this is the first time that the ad inventory for Olympics is available programmatically. I think you're seeing more gender equity in sports. I like Caitlin Connor and the NCAA women's basketball championship exceeding the viewership for the NCAA men's championship. You're seeing more female interest in the NFL with the likes of Taylor and Travis. So I think there's a lot of buzz happening in terms of trying to get, penetrate and appeal to a different audience that maybe tuned in prior. And this is really driving, I think NBC, I think a lot of people are wondering, what is Peacock's chances in the streaming wars, against Hulu, Disney, and Apple TV and the like. So I think it's live sports. That's where they're making up ground here. And I think even interestingly more is about a quarter of the 1.2 billion are actually first-time advertisers. So you're seeing actually non-alcoholic beverage, CPG, financial services all get in on the game here. So we'll be in. And also, Sean, I think the trend is, I don't know if you knew, this is an election year. I don't know if you knew that. But this is also situated.
TV costs should go up this year. It's not a great time to be buying TV ads.
This is also situated, I think, just between the Democratic National Convention, Republican National Convention as well. So I think we're going to see, I talked about the categories that are first-time advertisers account for a quarter. I think we're going to see some political ads as well.
I think we will too.
The year that it is.
Oh my gosh. I think there'll probably be, I think each campaign is going to spend over $1 billion this year on political advertising. So I'm sure from about August to November, all we will see is political advertising anywhere and everywhere that we look. So not a great time for a marketer to be buying ads, but this might be the one reprieve before the chaos going into the fall of only political ads. I think it's interesting. I'm going to go contrarian here and be a little bit more skeptical of the Olympics versus the Super Bowl, or even like Caitlin Clark's women's NCAA finals and other big sporting events. I think it's really long. I think in a world where nobody has any attention anymore, I think the opening ceremony, the closing ceremony, and maybe some of the big events like the basketball championship, some of the swimming stuff that in gymnastics that people get into, I like buying ads there. I think people will watch live. I think the rest, we're a TikTok world. I think most people won't be tuning in and watching the live, long tail events. They're going to look for the clips that pop up on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, the meme worthy moments. I think NBC's already capitalized on that by hiring Snoop Dogg to narrate some of the events for entertainment purposes, because they know they're going to get some good 30-second soundbite clips that will go viral. So I don't love that much money being spent on it. I've got some history with this from my days at P&G. Like we had sponsored multiple Olympics, and many of the brands would participate. The P&G people that sponsored it might tell you differently. I didn't think there was, from a brand level, a very measurable lift. Like, great for the company if you're trying to raise, brand equity for Procter & Gamble. They did the Thank You Mom campaign, I think very memorable. But a handful of seconds at the end where you scroll through some brand logos, I don't think it does anything for specific brand awareness, or it doesn't really raise things. I tend to find these type of events at big companies, when they sponsor them, people get enamored in kind of the lifestyle or the glamour of it. It's like, oh, we'll go have a house at Olympic Village and we'll send 150 people over and we're going to go live our best life for 3 weeks. Is it really moving the needle from an advertising standpoint? I think if you're strategic about it and you advertise on the right moment, yes. But I think a lot of big companies likely overpay for the Olympic sponsorship. I think it gets a little bit hyped. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I would venture to say if we Googled it right now and went back to the year 2000 to 2024, I bet viewership has probably declined year over year as cell phones have become more popular. So I don't love it. I think it's not the same as the Super Bowl. In my opinion, I tend to think it's a little bit of a boondoggle. But if the right brand finds the right moment to advertise in, I think it can be big, especially if you can capitalize on some of the viral moments that will likely come out of the Olympics in the TikTok world.
Yeah, and I would agree with you in declining viewership. I think it's interesting to even consider this. but like, does the market in which that it's set have any correlation? So I see it's in Paris this year, so a little bit more buzzy, a little bit more popular. It'll be in LA
I would agree with
in
that.
2028. So I think, to your point, in totality, it's probably declined over the last 2 decades. But I would be curious if there's a correlation and increased viewership based on the interesting value of where it's set.
Yeah.
But
I would agree.
But transitioning, I'm going to talk fintech or financial services here for a minute.
Let's do it.
Well, yeah,
everybody loves fintech. It's their favorite topic.
Everyone's going to glaze over here. So Chase Media Solutions getting in on the retail media game. So longtime Chase customer, actually Bank One, whenever that was a thing 20 plus years ago. They recently launched Chase Media Solutions, but technically they've been in the space with Chase Offers since 2018 via like in-app and on-site offers for like cashback and discounts from various advertisers. But they are going all in. And I think the big difference this time is, in the past, the legacy program was actually run by Cardlytics, whereas now Chase is taking that on squarely. I think Rich Mulstock is going to be at the helm. And there's going to be no third party involved. So the granularity in which the targeting with the first party data is going to be able to improve vastly. And I think
better.
And like, what do I love about this? Audience of 63 million potential customers, deeper insights like socioeconomic information, think like earnings information, geo, like credit scores, which categories are consumers spending on. Like, this is going to be so data rich. And for both search purposes and B2C brands, customers, but also B2B. Like, I think, DSP and non-endemic advertisers, like seeing Kia or Hyundai advertise on Amazon, be able to like harvest, like partner with like a Chase here. Or even some of the other retail media networks like Home Depot and Uber are trying to revamp and offer these now. So like, I think this is a baller move on Chase's place here. And I'll be curious, like, do other banks follow suit? Because I think they can win big with other retail media networks, with brands, B2B and B2C, and really drive a lot more richer insights to drive spend.
Yeah, I think I agree. I agree with all of that. I think 2 big thoughts for me on Chase having a retail media network. One is the fact that they have your actual debit card and credit card data. And if Target wants to retarget people that have bought at Target but are maybe lapsed, like, amazing data that they have that they can go do that. If somebody knows that, BMW wants to target a certain income level, or somebody that's purchased a different car in the past based on their car loan data, they can go do that. So I think it's fantastic in theory. I think in practice, they're a bank. They're going to be very conservative. Are they going to be able to get out of their own way to actually execute? So will they be able to build it right, do the data, and actually, like, make it a meaningful network that adds positive ROI and value? My hope is yes, because I think they've got the data to do it. The question is, can they execute? And I think you've seen it time and time again is, somebody goes into something that's non-core. I won't name a name because I work with them, but a major grocery store started a third-party marketplace similar to Amazon or Walmart. But they staffed it, but they don't really fund it, right? It always plays second fiddle because it's not their core competency. So it's a great idea in theory, but it kind of just meanders along in the background and doesn't get the resources that it needs. Will that happen at Chase, since they're a bank and they're always going to be focused on, deals and things like that and trying to make money their traditional way? Like, will they actually staff this appropriately to blow it up the way that they could? So other than that, I love it, man. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. And just for the listeners, retail media continues to grow. If you look at any of the annual reports from Amazon, Walmart, retail media is projected to actually hit 166 billion in 2025. That's just 20% of all digital investment. So I'm with you. Like, conceptually, love this. I will be interested to see how this actually plays out. If they can execute at the scale that's needed and really partner closely with brands, because I think this would be a very hands-on, collaborative effort. But
they can make a lot of. I think they can make a lot of money doing it. My biggest concern is the next time there's a financial crisis or a downturn or a banking crisis, is this the first division that gets cut because it's not core? Like, that's the only. That's always the risk in something like this.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of retail marketplace or retail media and marketplaces, it looks like Temu, who shop like a billionaire or whatever the 8 times we saw that in the Super Bowl. They are rapidly expanding in the US. So before you would order on Temu and it would take a week, 2 weeks to get your product. It's shipped from China directly. They've now invested in their first US based warehouses. So that product can get to consumers a lot faster at presumably a lot lower prices than what we're seeing in other marketplaces. And they just launched their own third party marketplace. So it will be really interesting to see, like, can they actually make a dent in the US market and start taking more and more market share from Amazon? I think Amazon's probably scared of Shein and Temu, and it'll be interesting to see how they react. But no major update other than that. But James, what do you think? Do you think they can make headwind?
We'll see. I think they're going to have headwinds. I don't know if they'll have tailwinds. Too early to tell for me. I am cautiously optimistic that they'll make some traction, but I just don't know if they'll have the staying power ultimately, and the quality of the products. Is that going to, are people going to sour on that over time?
Yeah, so I agree. And for me personally, like I own an Amazon reseller and some of our own brands, and we've been asked to be a reseller or a third party seller on Shein, on Temu. But I've talked to a ton of people in the also in the market, and I'm just a little, I don't know, I'm a little nervous to sell there because the equity is like, hey, everything's from Chinese sellers. It tends to be cheap. Am I going to degrade my equity or our company's equity by selling the products there? Maybe that's an unfounded fear that will change over time as these platforms get bigger. But that's certainly something that has me worried. Well, I think with that, we are coming close to the end here. But the other big marketing thing that happened this week is, I think, which is really worth talking about, is Taylor Swift dropped her album, I think it's called the Tortured Poets Society, last night. So I think she's a masterclass in marketing and has done a fantastic job. So earlier this week, somebody sent me her album leaked on Tuesday or Wednesday, which I know is always a problem when these new albums launch. So what did she do? She had a backup plan, knowing that her album was going to leak. She dropped a second album at 2 a.m. after the first one that nobody had leaked or nobody really had. So I think just a masterclass of build up, getting her fans, the Swifties, involved, which are probably the largest mobilized consumer group out there. And she's really just dominated news media. I mean, it was like people were live streaming the album release last night, like they were live streaming the Super Bowl. She's really become that big of a cultural icon. And then today, all the memes and people, breaking down her lyrics and who she's talking about, she's really dominated the conversation. And I think from a marketing and business standpoint, there's nobody probably in the history of music that has done it better than Taylor Swift. From her $1 billion tour to really just knowing how to capitalize on these launches and own the conversation and really mobilize her fan base, which is, I mean, with her staying power, seems to be getting bigger and bigger. My 5-year-old daughter is a huge fan. My wife, who's in her 30s, is a huge fan. I mean, her audience is growing bigger, and she knows how to keep people engaged and capitalize on it. And I think the one thing that I would take away, whether you like Taylor Swift's music or not, is it goes back to the kind of the P&G inside of, like, can you connect with somebody on a human level with a human insight? And whether you like her music or not, she writes lyrics that connect emotionally with a large audience. And I think that's why she's had so much staying power, continues to grow old and young followers. And when she launches an album, you've got the New York Times staying up until midnight and live tweeting and live streaming updates about it for 3 hours. And if you log on to Twitter, or X as they call it now, the next day, that's all everybody's talking about, and they're trying to decode her lyrics. I mean, I think she's just a masterclass in marketing, and probably the most successful artist, male or female, to do it in quite some time, or at least in this digital age.
Yeah, and apologies to everyone. Sometimes life calls. Thermostat crashed here, so I had to go step away and give Sean some FaceTime and Floor.
Yeah, and I literally just I wasn't planning to talk about Taylor Swift, but I just launched into like a 5-minute monologue about Taylor Swift's marketing masterclass. So
Well, I don't know
Swifties, if you're listening, give us a follow, give us a review on the podcast.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm going to go back and listen now to see what was shared. But I don't know if you hit on this, but speaking of Swift, maybe got to interact with her potential future brother-in-law last week. So
Yeah.
Sean and I are part of an organization that celebrates 125th anniversary, and Jason Kelsey is actually part of that as well. And Jason and Travis, no Taylor sighting. We're actually at UC's campus last Thursday to do their New Heights podcast. I think they've got a little bit more of a following than BrandBusters, but we're on their tail.
Yeah, we're trying to catch up.
But that was a really good event. Jason's just an upstanding guy. Got to put my beer chugging skills to work. I'm a lot of practice, like a decade plus, but lost as you would project. And
yeah, Jason's retired now, so when we were in college, Jason could probably chug a beer in two to 4 seconds, maybe.
Yeah.
And probably can still do that. So he hasn't lost a step. And it seems like retirement's going well for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, it was awesome. I mean, I think I saw the Twitter debate last week too, just kind of going back to marketing, how this all ties back into marketing. I think the Kelsey brothers have done a fantastic job. I mean, you have the Manning brothers that kind of were the first that started to do it. I think they've taken it to a whole nother level with their entertaining podcast and really just being themselves. It was funny on Twitter, as you can tell, I'm kind of addicted to Twitter, but on Twitter, it's where I get all my news and happenings. But everybody was outraged that Travis Kelsey had chugged a beer as he was getting his diploma from UC, and most people didn't realize it was a stunt for hess podcast, not an actual graduation ceremony. And I think he did exactly what he wanted to do. It's kind of the Donald Trump mentality of like no press, no press is bad press. So whatever it is keeping you in the spotlight is only going to make you bigger and more popular. And it's funny to see people debate like, oh, he shouldn't have done that. That's disrespectful to the university. But when you take a step back and kind of look at both the Kelsey brothers' personalities and what they've done with their podcast, I think one, they're relatable and real and kind of shoot it to you straight. But two, their public persona, they've kind of, it's almost like they've modeled after like The Rock or Stone Cold Steve Austin from WWE. They've created these personalities, or I guess Logan and Jake Paul. They've created these personalities that are their media personalities that are larger than life, right? Like I got to go grab the microphone and say, you know, you got to fight for your right to party, and I got to chug a beer in this thing, because they know in the world of everything going viral, like that's what's going to get the 15 to 30-second clip, and that's what's going to have people on both sides being outraged and also defending them. And all the while they can kind of hang out and be their true selves outside of these personalities and just rack up views and become more and more popular. So again, as we talk about Taylor, I think the Kelsey brothers, it's kind of funny that they're like a match made in heaven right now, have also found a way with a different demographic to really do marketing well and stay relevant culturally, just like Taylor's done. So it'll be interesting to see how the two of them, with their combined forces and minds together, only take it to the next level, until of course that they break up and she writes a fantastic breakup album.
I know things. Would I want to be a Taylor Swift ex? No, unless I was getting some of the royalties from said distribution. No, I would not. But no, I agree. I think in any pushback, I think people are a little bit too sensitive and real. I think they're massive advocates for the university. We don't have to be vanilla cookie cutter. The amount of buzz that they drove in alumni engagement and people coming back to campus and having this resurged interest in the university and athletics, especially in the world of NIL. I mean, I think these are, they play the role well. They weren't, they're not traditional academics. Like they're athletes and just normal guys that excel in their field. And I think ambassadors for the university. So if you're in an uproar about them chugging a beer on stage at their own podcast, like go take a hike.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. All right. Well, I think unless you have anything else, James, I think that probably concludes our episode today. So episode 8 down, and we'll look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks for episode 9. All right. I'm gonna